here to have a panel discussion on compliance of the POSH law, the experience in 220 pre-COVID and compliances post-COVID. Today we have with us our guest speaker, Ms. Lynette D'Souza, Ms. Preet Kushalappa Kodira, and our moderator, Ms. Renuka Mukadam. I welcome all of you for the session and all other past participants as well. I'll briefly introduce the speakers, our guest speakers for today. Ms. Lynette D'Souza is a director, membership at the Manyata Embassy. She has over 20 years of experience in diverse sectors such as telecom, banking, and insurance. In her current role, she is associated with Ligato Health Technologies, which is a wholly owned subsidiary of Anthem Inc. Ms. Lynette is a presiding officer at POSH and has been working and involved in setting up POSH framework and creating awareness to the folks who have joined Ligato. Welcome to this panel discussion, Lynette. Next, we have Ms. Preet Kushalappa Kodira, who is a senior principal HRD as Infosys Limited. She has over 20 years of corporate experience, of which she has been with the Infosys for the last 17 plus years. She has a master's degree in psychology and a PGDM in HR from Symbiosis Institute of Management, Pune. In her career with Infosys, she has handled various roles in HR, from employee relations to business partner HR, and also keen interest in diversity and inclusion and employee well-being. In her current role, she heads the grievance redressal body at Infosys and is responsible for nurturing a positive work environment for 2.5 lakh employees globally. She works overseas for 14 internal committees across India and also works on POSH related matters externally to support the larger cause. Welcome, Preet. Now,
thank you.
Now I introduce our moderator for today, Ms. Renuka Mukadam. She is also a council member, Wiki council member, and also a POSH practitioner. She has BA degree in psychology and sociology and a master's degree in social work. She has more than 15 years of work experience in POSH. She also works on women and health issues. She also takes several assignments on POSH and acts as an external member on IC at several government and private organizations. She also conducts regular training and awareness workshops in Mumbai, Delhi, and Pune. I welcome Renuka for this session as well. So before we start with the session, like we all know the topic of the session today, and let's take a quick background of the Sexual Harassment Act 2013. So as we all know that the Constitution of India speaks about equal status and opportunity, and therefore safe workplace is every woman's legal right. India has also ratified the CEDAW, that is Convention on Elimination of All Forms of Discrimination Against Women. But what led to the passage of Sexual Harassment Act 2013? Before 2013, there was not even an act in place. So briefly to talk about it, we all may be aware about an incident that happened in 1992, the case of Bhauri Devi in the state of Rajasthan. She was a social activist who was working in the small village in the state of Rajasthan, and she was appointed as a Sathi to prevent the child marriages. Bhauri Devi tried to prevent a child marriage happening in the area, which was a normal course of duty and work. Some men in the area, they thought that we should be teaching her a lesson in order to with an intention to teach her a lesson. They raped her in front of her husband while she was going to her workplace. Soon after that, she complained it to the authorities. The matter went up to the court, but then the court acquitted all the accused, and then there was a time when there was several organizations and NGO representatives, NGOs and activists who came up together under a common name, Vishaka, and they filed a petition in the Honorable Supreme Court of India. When they filed this case in the Supreme Court of India, it was proposed that the sexual harassment at workplace be considered as violation of women's fundamental right to equality, and that all workplaces should be made accountable and responsible. During this course, a landmark judgment was passed by the Supreme Court of India in the Vishaka versus State of Rajasthan in 1997, wherein the Supreme Court issued 11 legally binding guidelines for the POSH. The Vishaka committees were formed across the country, but there was no formal legislation in place till 2013. It was only in the year in 2011 wherein a heinous crime took place that shook the whole country. That was the incidence of Nirbhaya in Delhi. Pursuant to this, several criminal laws and acts underwent amendments in the country, and that was the time when the Criminal Amendment Act 2013 came into force, and also there were several changes in the IPC wherein section 354A, B, C, and D were included. This act was then tabled in the year 2012, which was then passed in the year 2013. So now we have the act in place, that is Sexual Harassment of Women at Workplace Prevention, Prohibition and Redressal Act of 2013. This act provides protection against sexual harassment of women at workplace and for protection and redressal of complaints of the sexual harassment. The act also ensures that women work with dignity at the workplace. Sexual harassment has been defined as unwelcome acts or behavior directly or by implication, physical contact or advances, a demand or request for sexual favors, making sexually colored remarks, showing pornography, or any other physical, verbal, non-verbal content which is sexual in nature. So taking into consideration today's discussion about the compliances, we will now go and we will go through, look at the pre-COVID compliances that happened before the COVID came into place in India. So major compliances at the workplaces were for the employer. Under Section 4 of the Sexual Harassment Act, it was mandatory, and it is mandatory for the employer to constitute an internal complaints committee at every workplace which is having more than 10 or more employees. The said ICC has to be constituted by an order in writing, which consists of 4 members, the presiding officers, 2 members, and 1 external member. So this had to be complied to with each and every employer at each and every organization. Apart from that, the employer it was duty bound to formulate and widely disseminate the policy on POSH. So it was necessary. So POSH policy was disseminated through all the employees working in the organization. Apart from that, it was the duty of the employer to display at any place, conspicuous place, the penal consequences of the ICC, and also an order constituting the ICC. So this was by the way of the posters that were pasted in across all the workplaces. Apart from that, the employer was also duty bound to organize workshops and awareness sessions and programs at regular interval for sensitizing the employees under the provisions of the act. It was also mandatory for the employer to have an annual report submitted to the district officer. So the annual report is to be submitted every year before 31st of January, which would include the number of sexual harassment cases received, the number of sexual harassment complaints that are still pending, the number of training and awareness sessions that have been conducted by the employer in his organization. So apart from that, when we talk about Section 19 of the Act, it was a duty of the employer to provide a safe working environment at workplace. Now that because of the COVID area, we are now mostly working from home. So this situation has changed now. So that is the purpose why we are having a panel discussion to understand how how other organizations are complying with the law post-COVID area. We'll have more inputs regarding the same. I would request Renuka to have more inputs and insights on the topic. Over to you, Renuka. Thank you.
Thank you, Sejal. Sejal has given us the overall overview of what compliances under the law are. We have 2 esteemed guests with us today, and we've had a sort of a slight pre-conversation with them in which we've tried to understand what are the things that they are doing or they've been doing in the last 1 year. So I would like to ask questions to our guests so that they can enlighten us about how their organizations have actually been following these compliance requirements during the entire COVID phase. I would like to begin with you, Preet. So prevention is one of the key aspects of sexual harassment. And Infosys has been very keen and has been adopting various measures to create a culture of zero tolerance. Now, how do you work towards this? And has there been a challenge during the pandemic because there was a more shift towards working from home, much more number of employees were working from home. How do you ensure this entire communication and visibility for the issue of sexual harassment? Preet?
Yeah, thank you. So am I audible? I guess that's the first question to ask.
Yes, you are audible.
Before we start speaking. Okay.
Yes, you are audible.
Thank you. All right. So just to give you a background, I'm sure you would be aware that Infosys is a global leader in next-gen digital services and consulting. We have a workforce of around 2.5 lakh employees, and we operate out of 46 countries. And in India, we have 14 campuses or development centers across the country. Right. So in the pandemic, we were pretty much successful in getting more than 98% of our employees to work remotely in just a couple of weeks. Right. For us, Infosys has always been an equal opportunity employer, and we've been committed in providing a positive work environment for our employees, which is free of any kind of discrimination or bias or harassment. Right. So we've always been very strong on our value system. And we constantly strive to foster a culture of mutual respect among our employees. With respect to sexual harassment or preventing sexual harassment at the workplace, I must say that we've been front runners in this topic. It's been 20 plus years that we've been running this initiative called ASHI. ASHI is an acronym for the Anti-Sexual Harassment Initiative. And we make sure that every employee has heard and is aware of ASHI and understands what ASHI means for us, right? So it's kind of a brand in Infosys today. In fact, we don't just look at our employees here. We also have equal focus on our subcontractual staff, or vendors, and so on and so forth, and everybody who's associated with us. So for us, even when the POSH Act came into being in 2013, we were very easily able to transition and align to the law, right? So it was not a very cumbersome ordeal for us to do, but it was pretty easy. So, and we strongly believe that, organizations should drive this more in spirit than in letter. While compliance is definitely an important aspect, but, if we have the intent to do what is right, I think that's what's important, and that's where we could really make a difference. And for us, we're also fortunate to have leadership sponsoring this initiative. Our CEO himself is a custodian of this initiative. And this kind of keeps us in good stead as well. So a few things that we've been doing even prior to the pandemic or to the act coming into place. So we've always widely communicated about our policy at various touch points, right? So right, as I said, from 20 plus years, we've been doing this right from onboarding. Like if you look at during onboarding, it's a mandatory session that we have. So everyone associated with us has to go to this session. Not just our employees, even our subcontractual staff, like our housekeeping folks, the security guards, the gardeners, our bus and cab drivers. So all of them are taken through this session, which is a 1 hour session, and only then they are allowed to be deployed onto work, right? So, and besides that, we focus on segmented groups while we do our awareness programs as well, right from leaders, managers, interns, and so on and so forth. We also stress upon our zero tolerance and non-retaliation philosophy very widely, because that's the way that we encourage the culture of speaking up, right? Because I think these two areas, retaliation is one thing which people do worry about. So we talk about it a lot. That they can be rest assured that there will be no retaliation. We'll ensure that confidentiality is maintained, and so on and so forth. And we try to constantly empower people to report matters if they face any such issue. So digital medium is something that we use a lot for our communication, be it a web app, that we have, or a mobile app that we have. where it's easy for people to lodge complaints. We also have a chat bot where people can, basic queries can get addressed. And of course, face-to-face connects, helplines, so on and so forth. So these are a few things that we've done. And in fact, for our subcontractual staff, it's again a different set of challenges that we have. Again, as I said, we have huge campuses, and ensuring that this set of people are also safe in our campus. We do sessions for them in vernacular languages. We have complaint boxes put up for them. We give them safety cards with IC contacts and so on and so forth. So when the pandemic really struck, while organizations' priority shifted towards business continuity and employee health and well-being, we really didn't lose focus on driving the need for people to adhere to our values, follow the code of conduct, and also ensure that they follow policies like the anti-harassment policy, social media policy. So we did a lot of communication on that front. We did focus on the managers because managers themselves had a new set of challenges to deal with the remote workforce. So how they had to be cognizant of the fact that they communicate to their employees, to their teams rather, and they also enable people and to identify issues and come forward and report it. So as I said, since we already had a very robust mechanism in place, the transition during the pandemic was also very easy for us. We started communicating, educating employees more about the changing definition of the workplace. What would extended workplace mean now? What are the acceptable norms of virtual working? How social media could be a tool for harassment. We did periodic communication around the emergence of the new normal and some of the do's and don'ts in the working environment. And besides that, periodic surveys, I think that's something which has worked really well for us, because while we do a lot of initiatives, we need to know if it's really effective and people are listening to what we're saying, right? So we've got some good feedback from that front as well, that people are understanding what we're talking about and they are ready to report if they face any such matters. So yeah, these are a few things that we've done during the pandemic.
Thank you, Preet. These are some really good initiatives and a lot of learning for us. I want to move to my next speaker, Lynette. Being in the health sector, I mean, you had absolutely no break when the pandemic struck. And although operations shifted to digital format, you mentioned that you had a lot of new employees coming in as well. So how did you really continue this process of creating awareness around the issue of sexual harassment while still grappling with remote working and all other challenges?
Yes. Well, I do agree with a lot of points that Preet had mentioned. I think work from home now is a new norm, and most of the corporates have, dealt with this norm very well in the last 8 to 9 months. Having said that, I think one of the challenges that we faced was the initial front was more in terms of logistics, in terms of, ensuring employee safety, well-being, ensuring that there was business continuity. So for a period of time, I think some initiatives like POSH, awareness around POSH was put on the back burner. But from a Legato healthcare perspective, we really did not want to put that too much in the back burner, because we had a lot of new employees coming in every week through our door. And we wanted to make sure that that awareness kept going on. Since typically we've never worked from home and all of our medium of communication has always been face-to-face, we had to relook at some of the ways that in which we were working and kind of revamp them to suit the virtual environment. And also, I think the dynamics of sexual harassment has also moved from a physical workplace to a more virtual environment. And we have to be cognizant about what are these things that we need to sensitize our employees with. So I think the first thing that we started off was from an induction perspective. Our induction has always been face-to-face. We've always had speakers talking to new employees and giving them examples. But right now, through the pandemic, we had to move that to a virtual environment. And we know the challenges from a virtual environment as well. We know that typically in a virtual environment, we kind of lose focus. There is no face-to-face interaction. And employees also do not understand. We're not able to gauge the body language so much of employees, whether they've understood. So what we did was we moved to a virtual session and also quickly built upon an interactive assessment where every employee had to take that assessment with good infographics and videos. and also do an assessment at the end of it just to capture whether they understood the finer nuances around POSH and sexual harassment and whether they would adhere to it. So that was one thing that we did, which at least made us confident that yes, it is not only a talking that happens in a virtual environment, but folks who've joined Legato are also undergoing an assessment and they've understood. Our team leads and managers are, key stakeholders, in terms of delivering the messages and in prevention as well. We did a lot of sessions to all of our team leads and our managers. We kind of gave them a lot of newer scenarios. We made it mandatory for them to talk about this in their staff meetings. We addressed all of our employees in town halls. We addressed them in various situations in terms of POSH. What are the do's and don'ts and how do they comply with it? But for us, most important was sensitizing our employees in terms of the new do's and don'ts in a virtual environment. It is about, since we've moved from a physical workplace to a more virtual environment, we had to talk a little bit more in terms of appropriate dress codes. How do you face video calls? Are video calls really necessary? And how is it that you don't cross the boundaries of video conference or text messages or phone conversations? We had to sensitize all of our employees, because of which a lot of communication went on. And we are also dealing with a lot of new generation, the millennial generation that we call them nowadays. And what really sticks with them and what really reinforces the message with all of them are a lot of emailers with a lot of infographics. So that was one of our mode of communication, and it really helped stick the message to them. So these infographics actually gave a lot of situational in terms of, do's and don'ts and what do you do? And how is it that your behavior is going to impact somebody else? So those infographics was something that really built that kind of awareness as well, and kind of helped at least make the case stronger as to what is it that we need to do from a virtual environment as well. So this is really some of those things that we did from a work from home environment, and we still continue doing it. Like Preet mentioned, we are coming up with an online redressal mechanism because we know that face-to-face is not going to happen as much. So complaints management is going to go online. We also trying to see in terms of what is it that we can do to even address maybe situations that they have and constantly communicate this through our intranet, bringing up awareness on questions, answers, situations, case studies, so that there is constant reiteration as well. So the messaging of POSH is not once a year or once in 3 months, but we constantly reiterate and reinforce the message to all of our employees, because at times, sometimes, it's always forgotten, and it's good to reinforce those message and keep it consistent. So these are some of the things that we did just to make sure that our workforce was kept aware, and also they knew who they could complain to in case, they were faced with such a situation.
Thank you, Lynette. Some of those things were really quite new for us. Preet, I'm coming back to you. So we are now in a working situation where we call it a new normal, where there is a hybrid sort of a working mode. And it seems that work from home is likely to continue for certain sectors, and you being in software, that is one sector where it is likely to continue. So Preet, what are the innovative strategies that you evolved in the last 1.5 years, which are here to stay, which you think will continue, given that we might continue in this hybrid mode of work?
Sure. So currently for us, we, as I said, we have about 98% of our workforce which is working remotely. In the future, we will also be looking at a hybrid model where, we'll have few employees who would be permanently working remotely, few of them who would be permanently working from office, and of course, a set of people who will visit campus maybe a couple of days in a week or a month, right? So the challenges are, a multifold now looking forward, right? Because we have a mixed workforce that we would be looking at. So importantly, I think aligning people to the company's culture, values, and norms will be a big challenge, which I personally think we have to address. And some of those points around onboarding, aligning them to the culture of the organization, I think that becomes really important. While we may also have employees who may not interact with us for a year or more in person, We may have gig workers, we may have part-time workers, we may have employees who are going to be working out of co-working spaces, which will, which will have people from different organizations working under one roof. While today we have our campuses where people work out of, but tomorrow it might be a shared facility. So all of this, I think, will come with its own set of challenges. So we would, what we would do is kind of strengthen whatever existing processes and guidelines that we have in place. And technology will definitely play a key role. So usage of digital medium will definitely increase. And I think we will have to start moving away from just doing traditional classroom trainings. So we've anyways been doing e-learning modules, gamification, videos, and so on and so forth. So I think we'll have to do a mix of both. The folks who are not coming to office, of course, we'll have to use more of technology there. And people who are coming to office, we can definitely have a mix of both. So communication, as I already said, is still a key thing to keep in mind, and looking at the different modes in which we can communicate, and also for segmented groups. So I think managers and teams will continue to play a key role, especially managers, right? So how effectively they will be able to manage their remote workforce, I think that's important. So enabling managers, enabling leaders to drive this is something that we should focus on further. Digital experience definitely will go a long way. So, okay, so while we do this, I think it's, as I already said, it's important for us to keep a tab on the pulse of the employees to understand if they are comfortable, if they feel, if their reporting matters, and so on and so forth. So I think that's something which we will constantly continue to drive. So it's not just about the organization and leaders and managers taking responsibility, but I think the fact that employees themselves should start taking more responsibility, one, of their behavior at the workplace, and two, about reporting matters that they may see where they are involved themselves, or it could even be the rest of the organization. So as a bystander, I think the role of individuals in the organization will also be important, and we will continue to drive communication for that set of people as well. So by and large, I think policies also will have to start getting integrated to have a more holistic view and cover employee safety and well-being, as a whole. And I think we'll have to constantly keep evolving our policies as well with the changing dynamics of the, with the new working model. So these are a few things which I think will have to continue.
Okay. Coming back to Lynette. Lynette, you mentioned that you have a lot of young workforce, millennials, or maybe Generation Z, as we call them. So what is it that we just passed Valentine's Day, and I thought this was a good time to ask this question. Are there any specific initiatives that you took up around this time to ensure that people don't, because there's a lot of reporting sometimes of people crossing lines in the name of Valentine's Day. It is considered a free-for-all sort of a time. So were there any specific initiatives that you took up around this time for your young workforce?
Not specifically around Valentine's Day, but what we specifically did from Q3 of last year is to keep our communication going. And we tried to do a lot of these infographics, emails, with the help of, some of our characters from Hindi movies, so that, the names and characters of these Hindi movies would create a kind of a stickiness factor with some of our employees as well. A lot of our awareness happened during December and Jan as well. So that was still fresh in everyone's mind, Renuka. So it wasn't specifically for Valentine's, but a lot of, emailers and a response and questions, case studies around what are the boundaries that one shouldn't be crossing, irrespective of what it is happening around us. I think that was really something that was very important for us. Of course, we do hear the one odd case of somebody proposing and somebody not able to take no. But yes, I think to a large extent, the communication that we did and sticking to the fact that a no means a no, and you can't cross these personal boundaries irrespective of whether the person is in front of you or no. It could be in a virtual environment, and do not think that any text message or any phone call is personal just because you're not in the office. And we wanted to build that awareness as well. So that is something that we really did in terms of building this whole awareness. And I think it's worked well, Renuka. And I think the whole idea is to continue doing this kind of communication as well, keeping in mind the younger generation that is there. And also keeping in mind that their ideas of personal space and personal boundaries are very different from, the traditional older generation that you say. So I think that is key to keeping that communication alive.
Yes,
Renuka, if I may
that's
add,
yeah, sure.
add to what Lynette said. So even here at Infosys, we hire a lot of freshers just out of college. So we have about 15 to 18,000 folks coming in from colleges every year, right? So the challenges are pretty much similar. And what we also do is, of course, during onboarding, the session that we do for freshers is very different, right? So we talk about scenarios and case studies. We start off with talking about scenarios back in college, like so if somebody asks you out for a date, then and if the person is not okay, what would you do about it? So we get varied answers about all the things that they do in college, and then we slowly bring them into what the workplace is all about and what corporate life is all about, and try to transition them from being a student to a professional. So I think that's one thing, and also periodic communications, as Lynette said, not just now that we don't do face-to-face sessions, so it's more online, and we have gamification, which is as a tool that we use very effectively. So, since we know they're on mobiles and they play games and things like that, so we've put up modules around that as well. So, I think some of these kind of get the message better for the younger generation.
Yes, that's true. And with the entire implementation of the POSH law and the UGC guidelines, campuses also these days are talking about the prevention of sexual harassment. So it is a little tough to kind of figure out what must have happened. And I think these challenges were further enhanced with the digital medium, because the non-verbal cues, the tone of voice, etc., patchy internet connection in many places, lack of bandwidth, depending on the medium that you're using. So all these, whether we insist on a video, etc., were all major challenges in POSH compliance. And let us look at what were the innovative strategies that have actually been used by some of these organizations. So yes, the whole conversation around prevention of sexual harassment, there has been a shift in terms of we always understood the workplace to be a fluid definition under the law. But I think with working from home, that has become much clearer. We have come across a lot of cases of virtual harassment, and therefore ensuring that the communication that we have with our employees includes these virtual forms of harassment. Whatever messaging was being done physically so far, so you had posters put up, and you had zero tolerance zones, etc. Whatever messaging was happening physically has now moved to the internet. So there is regular messaging that is happening via the internet for the employees, so that the information is out there, accessible to everyone. Apart from this, the innovations in terms of virtual inquiry, as the two speakers mentioned, the documentation challenges. How do you really ensure that your IC is sensitive? How do you ensure that you undertake various mechanisms to ensure that the IC understands the challenges that are faced by the employees in actually appearing before the IC for a virtual inquiry? How do you really deal with that? How do you really deal with the communication part of it? So there have been various innovations that various organizations have done. Whether it is an online mechanism for reporting, whether it is having an app or a chatbot which would take complaints, whether it is a flexible internal committee which would accommodate the inquiry process based on the comfort and the availability of the complainant. These are various ways in which organizations, especially these two speakers that we have spoken to, they have managed to keep the issue alive. So as Preet very rightly mentioned in her entire in the beginning when she was answering one of the questions, implementation of the law in spirit is something that is very, very important. And therefore, these innovations for training and awareness, where we have swiftly moved to a more online mechanism of training, where there are e-learning modules, there have been webinars, there have been certain theater workshops, constantly sharing the do's and don'ts of behavior with employees, especially in a digital space, understanding that a digital working place is also within the definition of a workplace as given by the law, and therefore using various audio visual aids to ensure that the messaging continues. And while the focus was something which continued to be on business in the initial months. I mean, all of us were struggling. They continued to maintain that communication around the issue of sexual harassment. I think what I also identified was the focus on managers, which is a key learning for us. That there has to be a focus on those who manage people so that they understand the purpose of the law, they understand sexual harassment very well, and making it mandatory for them to attend sessions so that the overall culture of the organization is retained in a safe manner, irrespective of whether it is a physical working mode or a virtual working mode. Having said all of this, I would like to now open the floor for any question answers that anybody would have. You could share your questions in the chat box uh, if you have any specific questions. Uh, okay, so there is one question in the chat box, but Vasantha, inquiry challenges, what is it exactly that you want to ask? Maybe you could unmute and ask the question.
Thank you very much for the opportunity to listen to all. And there are a lot of new kind of inquiry challenges during the new normal kind of things we face. Actually, definitely everybody is facing, and how to address. Sometimes they have a poster. A bachelor. I recently come across that a bachelor is having, because he is saying that bachelor's rooms are like this. Art pictures, nude pictures of the cine actress, all such things. He's claiming that this is my room. And such challenges are very difficult to handle. This is one example, but there are so many things. So inadequate infrastructure in terms of digital infrastructure and physical infrastructure, and these are some challenges we face. I just wanted an answer for.
Thank you.
Well, I could take that. I think that's a very valid point, and especially in a virtual environment, it is very important to do that sensitization to employees. What are the do's and don'ts? Uh, and it could be in terms of their environment in the house. It's also in terms of the clothes they wear, and what are the things they are displaying around their home office, and all of these things we need to sensitize our employees with. And that is something that we did when we transitioned to a work from home environment. Make sure that we looked at what are the things that are inappropriate from a work from home perspective, and we put that as a do's and don'ts, and we've dealt with that from an induction perspective in our regular communication with all of our staff, and also making sure that the team leads and the managers are addressing this. And this is very, very critical. I completely agree with your point that that a lot of bachelors and a lot of youngsters might have stuff like this in their houses. But I think when you're on video conference, it is very important that you maintain the decorum of professional etiquette, and you showcase that professionalism because you have other folks there on video as well. So sensitizing and talking about these things are very, very critical. And I think that is what is something that we need to constantly talk to our teams and make sure that they adhere to it as well. So that is something that has worked well for us. And I think we should still continue doing, because we might be moving to a hybrid work environment later, and that might hold good for all corporates. So making sure that that decorum and professional etiquette is followed is very critical.
Yeah, just to add to what Lynette said, I completely agree to all the points there. But Vasanta, like you said, the person has no go, but has to have that poster up there, right? So for us, while we do sensitize people about the do's and don'ts, we have certain things which are not, non-negotiable, right? As an organization, so we have, as I said, we have zero tolerance for certain behaviors and aspects. I think these kind of matters, just to pick that example of a background, I think people know today that you have virtual, they have different backgrounds which you can put up while you're doing a video call. So it's not a reason that one could give, right? So I think exactly like Linda said, sensitization, yes, and we also are pretty firm about some of these aspects, and it's not negotiable. So it's as simple as that. So I think these are different ways in which we should handle this situation.
I had an additional question on this. What about a dress code? Did either of you specify a dress code for your employees when they're working from home or when they're video conferencing?
It is important to maintain a professional dress code. Okay, no extreme graphics on a dress code, which could be offensive, and that is normally the case. We've also ensured that people wear clothes which you would typically wear even in an office setup. Okay, so no coming in vests and being in a video conference, because that might be offensive, and that is also inappropriate. So the minute we started working from home, these were some of the do's and don'ts that we circulated, and these are still do's and don'ts that we circulate. So like Preet mentioned, I think it's constantly, I mean, zero tolerance to some of these things, sensitizing and making sure that this is reiterated in every induction, every meeting. I think those are core values that everybody must abide with.
So we also have a dress code policy. We've always had a dress code policy. And yes, in the new normal, we just, reinforced that, you have to be you have to maintain the professional decorum, and you have to be professionally dressed if you're coming up on a video call, right? So there's no excuse for that. So as I said, some certain things are non-negotiable. So yeah.
Any more questions from anybody amongst any of my council members, any of the joinees?
I think in the meantime, I'll ask a question. That last year, we at least faced this one challenge that a couple of employees were supposed to go to the workplace because of whatever requirements, and a few were working from home. Those who had access to digital platforms, it was comparatively easier to communicate with them because of access to webinars and Zoom or Teams links, etc. But those who did not have smartphones or computers, we did face this challenge of how do we really create awareness or do any kind of communication of this nature with them. So I was wondering if there was something like this which you also faced, and how did you come up with a solution?
Okay, so Lynette, do you want to go first, or?
You can go ahead.
All right. So yeah, even we had a small percentage of people who had to come to office, because of not having certain approvals from clients, or due to the confidentiality nature of work. So we in fact had people staying on campus as well, right? So we've had them there for a period of time. So we already kind of had a hybrid model here, right? So we continued doing sessions. And to your question on for example, if you look at the housekeeping and security staff, right? So they still come to the campus, right? And today, I am in campus today, and I know walking around, I do talk to the security and housekeeping folks to understand what is their understanding about this whole situation. So while we did training for them, what we did is we got them into conference rooms, of course, with social distancing and all of that. And we as speakers, we did video conference sessions for them from home. So we tried to do some of this for people who are on campus, and folks who don't have a laptop or desktop. We didn't have a situation like that because we enabled our entire workforce. We in fact shipped desktops and laptops to people, to their residents. So people who are working from home, they definitely have a system to work from, right? So that's some way in which we managed for people who are coming to office, and especially our contractual staff who are on campus today.
Lynette, you want to add something?
Nothing more to add. I think what Preet mentioned is largely what we have followed as well. Though we didn't have a hybrid model and nobody came to office, but we enabled everybody with the laptop. So I think the communication went on as planned in the digital media. But yes, exactly what she mentioned was what we continue doing from a communication perspective.
One simple question from Vasanta Kumari again. I just wanted to ask you, in one-on-one call, are you encouraging video call? Because there was a request from the manager to focus the camera of the thing to, private parts, all such things we have received in Chennai, actually. So how do you address the one-on-one video call?
So at times, video calls are very essential. But what we've sensitized, and especially like we mentioned, and I think both Preet and me have mentioned this, that our team leaders and team managers are the key stakeholders to avoid prevention and to make sure that these aspects are adhered to. That sensitization to our team managers, saying that if it is not required, if you can do an audio conference, please let it go. Do not insist on one person in the team being on video, and everybody else being on audio. When you're on video, make sure that you're having appropriate conversations. We've also had instances, and we've heard of instances where the team managers have kind of said, okay, now can you show your the rest of your house and the rest of your family to me? And it bordered so much on sexual harassment because there were certain comments made around that. So that sensitization is something that we've done with. And of course, there is zero tolerance. And if anybody has that impact and feels that this shouldn't, I mean, it is bordering very close on in terms of uh, on harassment, they need to come out. And there is absolutely no need for employees to sit quiet and adhere to these norms. So I think that communication has also been very clear to all of our employees. And if ever they are faced with a situation where their supervisor or their colleague or their peer is asking them for certain things which is making them uncomfortable, they need to stop, because it in no way impacts their work. So they need to stop and then address it as a complaint, which means that we can take that up as a larger forum. And that's been our constant communication and advice to our teams.
Just to add on to this, Masanta, I think, while we've been sensitizing people about the do's and don'ts, I think the larger aspect here, which we have to focus on, is empathy and trust. I think that's something which, in the initial days of lockdown, I think that is where we focus a lot there, because I think it's very important for us as managers and leaders to empathize with the rest of the workforce, right? So people, we're really struggling to manage, the personal requirements, work, women with young children, dealing with schooling, and so on and so forth. So I think empathy is one aspect which we spoke a lot about for managers and leaders to keep in mind. And second is the trust factor. So it initially people wanted everybody to come on video call because we were, people were not sure, like, is somebody in the kitchen? Are they cooking? Are they doing something else? Are they really focusing on what I'm saying? So those kind of situations could crop up, right? So we proactively sensed some of this, and we did various communication while this is beyond, around sexual harassment, but other things around trust and empathy, which is very important. I think if we can get that right, most of these other aspects will also get taken care of, and people will not unnecessarily, doubt that if somebody is really there on the call or is. So I think you have to give that space to your employees as well, and then over time things will settle.
Yes, I think that is very important. And people did have multiple challenges, at least in the beginning, and some of them might continue to have these challenges. I think we are out of time, and it's time for us to close this session. I don't see any more questions coming forth. So I would really like to take this opportunity to thank both Lynette and Preet. You've been extremely accommodative and taken time out for preparatory calls, confirmed to us and given this time and shared your insights and your initiatives with us. It has really been a great learning for all of us. I would like to also extend my thanks to WICCI, Maharashtra Anti-Sexual Harassment Council, all my council members. Everybody has pitched in, although you see me and Sejal right now in front of you. It has been a team effort, and everybody has pitched in their own way, whether it is, coordination or making the slides or scheduling the call, etc. So this has been a really good session and very good learning. And thank you, everybody, and stay safe. Thank you to all the participants who joined us today. I hope this has been a good learning for all of you. Thank you very much, everybody. Stay safe and goodbye.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.